You already know the answer to how leaders gain influence by avoiding unhappy and unlucky people. You just refuse to accept it. Think about the last time you avoided someone because they were having a bad day. That instinct, that was your subconscious trying to protect your influence. So let's talk about the psychology of power, specifically Law 11. You see, when you surround yourself with people who are unhappy or unlucky, it's like you're slowly draining your own battery. Why do you keep doing this to yourself? You're essentially giving away your power, your energy, to people who can't even take care of themselves. But therefore, it makes sense that leaders throughout history have used this strategy to gain influence. Napoleon, for example, was known to avoid people who were unlucky or unhappy. He believed it would rub off on him. And it's not just Napoleon. Think about it. When was the last time you wanted to be around someone who was complaining or negative? You didn't, right? You probably avoided them or tried to change the subject. You are the architect of your own influence, and the materials you use are the people you surround yourself with. So, if you're surrounding yourself with people who are unhappy or unlucky, what kind of structure are you building? It's like you're setting yourself up for failure. But if you surround yourself with people who are positive, motivated, you're building a foundation for success. Now let's take a step back and think about why this strategy works. It's because our brains are wired to respond to emotions. When we're around someone who's unhappy or unlucky, our brain picks up on that energy. And it affects us. It's like our brain is trying to protect us by warning us away from people who might drain our energy. But therefore, if we can learn to recognize this and surround ourselves with people who are positive, motivated, we can actually increase our influence, our power. Think about it. You have the power to choose who you surround yourself with. So why not choose people who will help you build your influence rather than drain it? You have the power to create the life you want. But therefore, you have to be willing to make the tough choices. So you're starting to see how the people you surround yourself with can actually affect your influence. You have the power to choose. And that's a heavy responsibility. Think about Law 11. It's all about avoiding unhappy and unlucky people. Now, before you think this is just about cutting people out of your life, it's not that simple. You have to understand why people are unhappy or unlucky in the first place. It's about empathy, putting yourself in their shoes and trying to see things from their perspective. But at the same time, you can't let their negativity drag you down. Remember the last time you tried to help someone who was going through a tough time. That feeling of frustration, that was your influence being drained. You can't pour from an empty cup, right? The people you surround yourself with are the bricks that build the foundation of your influence. So you have to be careful about who you're letting into your inner circle. It's not about being selfish. It's about being intentional. You have to think about how the people around you are affecting your life and your influence. Imagine you're on a ship, and there's a hole in the side. If you don't patch it up, the whole ship is going to sink. It's the same with the people around you. If they're draining your energy, You have to cut them loose. It's not easy, but it's necessary. You have to think about your own influence and how you can build it. Now, let's think about this in a historical context. Like Napoleon, he was known for his charm and charisma, but he was also ruthless when it came to getting what he wanted. He surrounded himself with people who shared his vision, and he didn't hesitate to cut out those who didn't. It's a hard lesson to learn, but it's one that can make all the difference in your life. So take a step back and look at the people around you. Are they building you up or tearing you down? It's time to be honest with yourself and make some tough choices. Your influence depends on it, and so does your happiness. So you're starting to realize that the people around you can really affect your life. Think about the last time you caught yourself feeling down after spending time with someone who was negative. That was your brain responding to the emotional contagion. It's like your emotions are linked to theirs. And that can be a really powerful thing. You see, when you're around happy and lucky people, your brain starts to mirror their emotions. It's like you're catching their luck. And that can be a huge boost to your influence. On the other hand, when you're around unhappy and unlucky people, your brain starts to mirror their negativity. And that can be a major drain on your energy and your influence. Your influence is not just about the people you surround yourself with, but also about the thoughts you allow to occupy your mind. You have to be careful about what you're letting in, because it can really affect your mood and behavior. As the philosopher Epictetus said, it's not what happens to you, but how you react to it that matters. So, you have to be aware of how you're reacting to the people around you, and make some tough choices. Imagine you're at a party, and someone's complaining about their job, and you start to feel down too. That's emotional contagion at work. But if you're aware of what's happening, you can take a step back and choose not to let their negativity affect you. You can choose to surround yourself with happy and lucky people. And that can make all the difference in your life and in your influence. So take a closer look at the people around you and ask yourself, are they building you up or tearing you down? Your influence depends on it, and so does your happiness. And that's a pretty powerful realization. So you're starting to realize that the people around you can either build you up or tear you down. And that's a pretty powerful feeling, because it makes you wonder who you're surrounding yourself with. Are they positive influences or negative ones? Remember the last time you met someone who inspired and motivated you. That feeling of excitement, that was your influence being sparked. You see, the people you surround yourself with are not just influences, but also reflections of your own character and values. They say a lot about who you are and what you stand for. So take a closer look at the relationships in your life. Are they intentional, or are they just happening by chance? Now imagine you're at a party, and you're meeting new people. You start talking to someone, and you feel a connection. But then you realize that this person is always complaining or talking negatively about others. How does that make you feel about yourself, about your own life? The importance of intentional relationships cannot be overstated. You need to cultivate relationships that inspire and motivate you. And that's where self-care and personal development come in. Because when you take care of yourself and focus on your own growth, you become more attractive to positive influences. You start to radiate a positive energy that draws people to you. And then there's the concept of influence mapping, which is basically a visual representation of the people in your life and how they're influencing you. It's a powerful tool because it helps you see who's building you up and who's tearing you down. So try it out and see what you discover about the people in your life. So you've got this diagram of the people in your life, and you're starting to see who's building you up and who's tearing you down. That's a powerful feeling because it makes you realize that you have control over the relationships you cultivate. You can choose to surround yourself with people who uplift you and avoid those who bring you down. Think about the last time you had a meaningful conversation with someone. That feeling of connection, that was your influence being strengthened. It's like when you're around people who share your values and interests, you feel more alive, more like yourself. You start to realize that the relationships you build are not just about the people you surround yourself with, but also about the person you become in the process. The concept of intentional relationships is key here. It's about being mindful of the people you let into your life and how they're influencing you. It's not just about having a lot of friends or acquaintances, but about having people who truly get you, who understand your values and interests. When you have shared values and interests with someone, it creates a deep sense of connection, a sense of belonging. You can try an experiment. Imagine you're in a room with someone who completely understands you, someone who shares your passions and values. How does that feel? Now imagine the opposite. Someone who doesn't get you at all, who brings you down. It's a completely different feeling. And it's up to you to choose which relationships you want to cultivate. Empathy and active listening are also essential in building strong relationships. When you take the time to truly listen to someone and understand their perspective, it creates a deep sense of trust and connection. It's like you're not just hearing their words, but also understanding their emotions, their thoughts. So take a step back and think about the relationships in your life. Are they building you up or tearing you down? Remember, the relationships you build are not just about the people you surround yourself with, but also about the person you become in the process. And that's a pretty powerful realization. The influence paradox It's this idea that the more you try to influence others, the less influence you actually have. Think about it. When you're trying to convince someone of something, you're basically saying you don't trust their judgment. You're saying they need you to tell them what to do. And that's not exactly the most attractive quality. You see, when you're trying to influence someone, you're coming from a place of control. You're trying to dictate how they think, how they feel. And that's just not how it works. People don't like being told what to do. They like to feel like they're in control, like they're making their own decisions. So the more you try to influence them, the more they're going to push back. But here's the thing. The greatest influence you can have is not over others, but over yourself. When you're in control of your own thoughts, your own emotions, that's when you start to have real influence. You start to attract people who are drawn to your confidence, your self-awareness. Remember the last time you felt like you were at a crossroads, unsure of which path to take. That feeling of uncertainty, that was your influence being tested. You were being forced to look inward, to trust your own instincts. And that's a really powerful thing. Now I know what you're thinking. How do I develop this kind of self-awareness? How do I become more influential, not by trying to control others, but by being in control of myself? It's a tough question, but I think it starts with humility. You have to be willing to listen, to learn, to adapt. You have to be willing to say, I don't know. And that's a really hard thing to do, especially when you're trying to influence others. You feel like you need to have all the answers. But the truth is, you don't. And when you can admit that, when you can be humble enough to say, I don't know, that's when you start to build real influence. But this raises a question that took me somewhere I wasn't prepared for. What if the greatest influence of all is not something you can see or touch, but something you can only feel? Like a whispered secret in the dead of night. And that's what comes next.